Jayden Higgins, Tre Harris, and Bech land in prime spots for huge fantasy potential, while Luther Burden III joins a crowded wide receiver room. We dissect the rookie wide receiver landing spots on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer, and when I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy betting, anything related to the 2025 NFL Draft at sportingnews.com.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Today, we are going to discuss all of the wide receiver landing spots after the first round from the 2025 NFL Draft. We already discussed the landing spots on Friday of last week of the guys who went in the first round, including Teteroa McMillan and Luther Burden, Matthew Golden, and Emeka Egbuka. So if you want to hear our opinions of their fantasy value in their rookie season, go listen to the episode on Friday if you missed it. But we're going to go through the rest of the wide receivers now that went in the draft. And right at the top of the second round, we saw Jayden Higgins go to the Texans. And then they also took another wide receiver in the fourth round and Jalen Royals. So they added two wide receivers to their room. But let's start with Higgins here because he is a big-bodied guy, 6'4", 214. I mean, he was being comped to Nico Collins prior to the draft, right? And now he joins Nico Collins. So what do we think about this Jayden Higgins pick? Do you think that he will be the second target in this offense with Collins?
Yeah, it's going to be maybe more crowded than we anticipated here because we have Nico Collins and we have now Higgins, but don't forget about Christian Kirk. He was acquired. He's in the slot, and that's probably going to curb one of Jalen Royals' value here this season. But Higgins definitely has an opportunity here. Collins, you figure, is still going to attract the attention on the outside. We'll see. This probably doesn't mean good things for Tank Dell and his health if they drafted two receivers. Yeah. Stephon Diggs is gone as well. So they're trying to make up for that production. So they really dove right in. And this is what you do when you have the wide receiver quarterback on the rookie contract, I should say. You try to get them rookie help in wide receivers who are on their contract. We saw with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. You saw it last year with Kyle Williams and Robert Dinze, and once again with receiving and tight end help this year. So I think that's what you saw here. The Texans want to take advantage of their quarterback as long as they can. They saw a bit of a sophomore slump there, probably related to transition at that position with Dell had some flashes, but he broke down. And then we had, of course, Collins being the marked man a lot in this offense. So that really limited what else they could do here. They didn't really have the consistent number two on the outside. So Higgins is going to solve that problem. He's going to line up on the outside. This team is primarily now in an offensive shift, by the way. I mean, losing Bobby Slowick and by choice. So now you'll have probably more three receiver sets. So that's why they needed some depth, right? With Kirk, and now you have Noel potential for the slot. So I wouldn't go nuts here for Higgins. Like, I still think he's got some wide receiver 3 potential in his landing spot. I'm not going to just say he's going to jump in and this team's going to open up the passing game here and all of a sudden chuck to everybody. They still were very grounded and effective doing that last year. The offensive line's taking some hits, so maybe not as great at pushing the ball downfield. So temporary expectations, but it's a really good landing spot. I think you'll see some of that value come in more in 2026 than 2025.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Jalen Royals, who they took a couple rounds later in the fourth, I mean, Higgins and Royals were teammates at Iowa State, and it was Royals that actually led the team in receiving yards. I mean, it was basically back-to-back, 1194 for Royals, 1183 for Higgins. Higgins had one more touchdown at 9. Royals had 8, but it was these two. That's it. I mean, the next closest receiver to them had 296 receiving yards in the season and 1 touchdown. So it was really Jalen Royals and Jayden Higgins doing absolutely everything. And now they're together again with the Texans. And Royals definitely is much more of like a slot type of guy, smaller, 5'10", 194. He's a similar type of role player to Christian Kirk, right? So they added another player that of a similar player they already have. But Christian Kirk has dealt with the injuries and dealt with staying healthy. So maybe Noel will get his chance if Kirk can't stay healthy this year. Now, also in the early second round, we saw Luther Burden III go to the Bears. So their first 2 picks, right? They add more to the offense, and the Colston Loveland pick in the first round hurt Cole Kmet's value. Now Luther Burden III in the second round, it kind of muddies the water, right? Because going into this draft, we were like, it's DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, and then Cole Kmet targets. Now Roma Dunze, Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, Luther Burden III. It's like all of these weapons again. Does this I feel like with Burden, he lands in a spot with a coach that will know how to use him, because Burden is very much like that gadget type of player, and he can amazing after the catch, but you have to kind of manufacture catches for him, which I believe Ben Johnson will do. But will he manufacture enough to make Burden fantasy relevant? And does this hurt Roma Dunze at all?
Yeah, I think you just have to think about all their targets. I mean, there's only one ball to spread around all these guys, and they also want to revamp the running game. And the funny thing is, they didn't take a running back until late in this draft, and they didn't attach themselves to any of these guys that were rumored to take. Ashton Genty, Omarion Hampton, Caleb Johnson. None of these guys came to Chicago. They admit they kind of tried maybe to move up the board to get a running back, but it was also odd after they tried early to get that running back, not to really approach that running back in the middle rounds, right? They waited until very late to add a back that really is not going to give them much competition here for DeAndre Swift. So that was a bit of a head scratcher. I don't know if they needed Burden. I thought, okay, when they drafted Loveland, I was like, okay, they're going to use a lot of 12 personnel with Loveland and Kmet on the field, and then you're going to have 2 receivers with Moore and Odunze. Then they come back and confuse us even more with Burden. I don't think he's necessarily a natural slot. I could see him playing there, but he's a guy that you want to get in the open field on the outside, make some plays, get involved on maybe end around, reverse type plays, those type of things to get him on the field as much as possible, because he's got that much speed and dynamic open field ability. But it's just where those touches going to come from. And Swift can make things happen out of the backfield when he's got some good blocking here. So I don't know how many balls are going to go around here at all. And anybody that comes into this mix trying to take away targets is not good for the overall big picture of what they're looking at in moving the ball through the air. So when you look at Luther Burden, look, a bad landing spot for him, questionable draft pick by the Bears, only because they just invested a first-round pick in Odunze last year, and Loveland, you had a nice talent there. So you already add all these people. But I think with Johnson, I mean, maybe getting the better of him is kind of his background with the offense and wanting to just have a lot of that, but they didn't get a real pass rusher that they needed. They could have done with a better offensive tackle. We would have liked them to explore one early in the draft to try to finish upgrading this entire offensive line. That would have been great for the rest of the skill players. But adding to this crowd is very shaky, and you just cannot look at Burden in fantasy. And he's not a guy that particularly appeals to me beyond this year, because Odunze is young and DJ Moore's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to like Burden at all for fantasy this year. I got to see him do anything and see what his even role will be. I will say, when you look at how the draft went for the Bears to start that second round, Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson went right before them, right? So maybe they were eyeing one of the Ohio State running backs, and once they went off the board, they kind of just pivoted to take another playmaker. And that's what Burden is. He's just a playmaker, and maybe they just kind of wanted to add that type of piece to the offense. It'll be interesting to see how that all works out. Now, we did have 3 wide receivers and a couple guys drafted in the late second, one drafted in the early third, that landed in really nice spots for potential targets. So we will hit on those 3 guys right after we hear from one of our sponsors. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much money I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. We had some really enticing landing spots for 3 wide receivers here. Tre Harris goes to the Chargers in the late second round. Jack Bech goes to the Raiders in late second round. And then Kyle Williams goes to the Patriots in the early third round. You know, I love that Kyle Williams landing spot. But let's start here with Tre Harris. The Chargers didn't go with a tight end, right? Both of the tight ends, Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren, were gone before we got to their pick in round 1. So they pivoted and they ended up just going wide receiver in the second round. But definitely an opportunity for Tre Harris, a guy I know you liked and I like as well. But with Quentin Johnston failing last year, even though they tried to give him opportunities, he had a couple big plays, but a lot of disappointments in there with them losing Josh Palmer and them not adding a true elite tight end. I mean, they added Tyler Conklin. There's a lot of targets here for Tre Harris to get involved if he can step up and prove that he's earned playing time as a rookie.
Yeah, the funny thing is I had Tre Harris maybe being a target for the Texans and maybe Jayden Higgins for the Chargers. They go different spots because they're similar receivers. You get some big plays on the outside here. And the good news is we have a clear role, I think, right away for Harris in this Chargers offense. We know Ladd McConkey is in the slot. We know they've moved on from Joshua Palmer, so he's basically replacing that role on the outside here to help Quentin Johnston and what McConkey can do inside. So you look at Harris, it's in a good spot. The question is, how much are the Chargers now going to throw the ball? How much volume is going to be there? It's really hard offense to figure out because now they've got Harris with Ladd McConkey. They have some potential there with Justin Herbert passing the ball, but then they're being invested with Omari and Hampton for the backfield with now Najee Harris. So I don't know exactly what you're going to get balance-wise for the Chargers, but I like the landing spot for Harris. They need an outside guy with some size to complement what McConkey does, and we just want them to open up the offense. We want it to be more prolific. We wanted to have some balance, of course, to take care of what Harris and now Hampton can do, but you also want them to open it up so you can get enough targets to Harris, because we know McConkey is probably going to dominate here, what we would get looks-wise from Herbert. Then we know Tyler Conklin is not going to do too much. I mean, from his history, he's just a guy that they have out there to start and do little things, but not to feature as an impact receiver. So those things we know, and then we think there's a drop-off or a question mark at the other parts of the receiving corps. So the opportunity there for Harris is pretty good. He's got a big arm quarterback. Now let's just see how much they open it up, how much, not just balance, but how many plays this Chargers team can pull off, stay on the field, sustain drives. Well, that's what we want to see here from this Chargers offense. I think it'll be balanced. It'll be explosive. We'll just see where Harris's role is, but I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, Tre Harris is definitely going to have to be on our radar because of that opportunity for him to play outside with Justin Herbert and be that top X type of receiver for them. I mean, this dude put up 1,030 receiving yards in 8 games at Ole Miss last year. So he played all over the place, but he also does just have the experience. He knows he's a good route runner. He knows the full route tree. Like, I think he is already ready to like come into the NFL and be prepared. It's not like he's like a raw candidate at all, a raw prospect, I should say. So definitely Tre Harris is going to be deeply in our fantasy radars for his rookie season. Now, Jack Bech goes to the Raiders. He was everyone's darling fantasy prospect before the draft, and he gets good draft capital. He goes in the late second round, right? And right now, his main competition for top targets at wide receiver is Jacoby Myers, and really no one else on this team at wide receiver. So you expect Bech to get a starting gig pretty easily with the Raiders. Obviously, Brock Bowers, we still expect to be the top target in this offense. But, I mean, there was a lot of comps prior to the draft of Jack Bech to Puka Nacua, right? That strong, larger player. He's 6'1", 214, but very strong, great at contested catches, really good body control, can make guys miss after the catch as well. So, I mean, again, another player that's going to get the opportunity, and he's going to have to be a guy that we're looking at to draft later in the double digits, hopefully, in 2025 drafts.
Yeah, the Raiders want to pivot a little bit and do what Pete Carroll's comfortable with, running the ball a lot better and effectively, and they did get that in Ashton Genty, their first rounder. They feel confident that running game will be kind of the bread and butter, what they do offensively with Chip Kelly. But now you have Geno Smith. That also changes the equation. You have a legitimate quarterback where you're not worrying about Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew in there throwing to a rookie. The other other young quarterbacks, right, that are kind of all over the board. Now you get a veteran who's going to look at Bech outside and say, look, he's a real good complement here to what we already have in Brock Bowers and Jakobi Meyers. So we'll just see how much he can eat into their work or complement them, how much the Raiders really want to open the offense. But I would think they're a little bit run heavier, so that means they're going to split these targets pretty evenly when you get past, I think, Bowers. I think you're going to see Myers, but I think Bech also has a chance to get the key outside targets here, be a little bit more interchangeable there for Geno Smith. I think that's when he operates the best with the slot and having two pretty fair outside wide receivers. So they're trying to recreate that environment for Geno in Las Vegas. So, yeah, he's a sleeper. We already know he starts as the third target on this team, right? It may change, like Geno Smith is new to the team, so he might favor the new player as well and go to him a little bit more. But the track record says right now the Raiders, they trust Jakobi Meyers, Brock Bowers to move the chains a little bit more playing off the running game than they would, I think, with Bech. But I really like Bech. I think I'm looking at more in 2026, but definitely a stash I want on my team to really boost it in the playmaking overall.
Yeah, if this was still Aiden O'Connell here, I would probably not give it another thought, right? I'd be like, okay, we'll wait it out because we know Aiden O'Connell wouldn't be able to put together a good enough season to make three guys relevant for fantasy, three receivers. But I do think, I don't think Jakobi Meyers is going to force 130 targets his way. No. I think it happened that way last year because he was needed desperately with no one else. I do think there's plenty of workaround with Geno Smith there now to make Jack Bech also very relevant come his rookie season. And then Kyle Williams goes to the Patriots in the early third round. He was one of the guys I loved before this draft. He's on the smaller side, while this draft was on the bigger side, but only 5'10", 190 pounds. But he did numbers at Washington State, put up over 1,200 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns this past year, made up 34% of Washington State's receiving yards. That was the seventh highest rate in the FBS. And also he could just line up anywhere, average 17 yards per reception, and gained 590 yards after the catch in 2024. That was tied for fourth most among FBS wide receivers. I really like his talent. I'm really excited he got some pretty decent draft capital, and I'm excited about the landing spot he went to because last year was Hunter Henry who led this team in targets. The clear need here. Yes, they added Stephon Diggs, but he's coming off an ACL tear. He can come back slowly. And then the rest of the room has Mac Hollins and Demario Douglas and Kayshon Boutte. Like, Kyle Williams has a real chance here to be a starter from day one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I didn't love the player as much as you did, but then I'm starting to look at it a little bit more from the Patriots' perspective that he kind of fits what they want to do with Josh McDaniels in the middle of the field in the slot. And it's funny, everyone's looking a lot at Tom Brady of the Raiders and them getting a converted quarterback for slot. Well, Josh McDaniels is the guy that was behind all those offenses that had a key slot receiver. So, again, Williams, things are wide open there. Jalen Polk has not lived up to any kind of expectation, even the milder ones we've had for him as a receiver. And Diggs, again, we're not 100% sure they'll be fully good to go here with the knee. He's also getting a little bit older. So Kyle Williams is kind of the sweet spot to be kind of a volume receiver for the Patriots. We'll see if that plays out, but it's definitely a good landing spot. I thought they might pull the trigger on a receiver earlier, but they had to get Will Campbell to shore up left tackle. So once that was done, you thought receiver would be a priority. Instead, they had to get running back first and Travion Henderson, which may have been a back burner need, but now Henderson landed a good spot there. We broke that down. And now Williams, again, people have to pick up the slack on the targets, and might as well be Williams, who they're excited about drafting and playing inside.
Absolutely. Now, after Kyle Williams goes off the board, still 22 more wide receivers were drafted after him. And now most of those guys are going to be absolutely irrelevant to fantasy football. But if history tells us anything, a couple of these guys will just catch us by surprise and be great steals either in dynasty drafts for 2026 or even in the rookie season next year. So we're going to talk about some guys that we think could make an impact immediately right after a quick break.
All right, it is NBA playoff time, and they're getting exciting here because now you've got the Lakers on the ropes here against the Timberwolves. That's an interesting series as well. You've had Anthony Edwards have a great success here. We'll see what happens with LeBron James after the season. Luka Doncic, that run looks like it could be done here soon. FanDuel, if you want to get in the action, that's where you want to go if you're new customers, because they're giving you an incredible way to get in the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And it's so easy to bet on FanDuel. That's why we love it, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props, I should say, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props, and we know there's plenty when it involves LeBron and Luka. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Again, get on the NBA action. It is FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, Michelle, it is time to continue and close the show. Now, look, it dried up pretty quickly, this well of wide receivers, and maybe the landing spots weren't as great, but let's look at some. Some were also surprise picks. I didn't kind of know what to do. It's like one of them was Isaac Tesla to the Lions. I mean, they're really excited about him. I thought he was maybe a day 3 late flyer. They took him on day 2. Yeah, Pat Bryant, I thought the Broncos would look at Emeka Egbuka, but unfortunately, the Bucs took him off the board in round 1, so they end up with Bryant, a big possession receiver from Illinois. Savion Williams, who's the second receiver for the Packers, taken after Matthew Golden in the first round. Then Ty Felton to the Vikings in between now what Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison can do. So what pick did you like of those 4? I mean, I think it's more location than talent than me, because I think these are all a bit of reach picks in that draft.
Yeah, they do all seem like reach. I didn't love any of these prospects, but Pat Bryant, he's a big dude, 6'2", 204, can play all over the field, and Illinois is very pro-style offense, so he could be ready to go right away. He did lead the team that wasn't super heavy, a great passing team with 984 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. Well, no one else really on that team did much of anything. He will get his shot, right? With the Broncos, I just don't know. Is he better than Marvin Mims? Is he better than Troy Franklin? Yeah. Is Evan Ingram? This might just be a win for Evan Ingram, right? To have the second most targets on the team. So he's a guy definitely to keep an eye on. I know a lot of people like the Savion Williams to the Packers, though, after them taking Matthew Golden. And he's such like that. He played that hybrid role at TCU, and I don't want to just compare him to Treylon Burks because that's what he played, but he was a guy that got manufactured touches for him. And this feels very much, like a bigger Jayden Reed, right? So they took Matthew Golden, who they're expecting to, if they took him in the first round, you would expect him to be your wide receiver 1 sooner rather than later. And then they already have a guy that they have to manufacture touches for with Jayden Reed. So it's like, how much opportunity will he really have?
Yeah, it's kind of like a hate pick, almost like Golden was too. It's like, I don't like what I'm getting out of Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs. We've invested in these guys, and we've had to rely on Dontavian Wicks. Jayden Reed has been our playmaker. So let's get 2 more guys into the mix to make it crowded. So Williams, unfortunately, is not a good spot for now. I mean, they're going to have to get him on the field somehow. Maybe it's a competition between him and Reed. Maybe they try to figure it out between these 2 rookies, how they work into the 11 personnel starting, and then you figure out one of the other receivers plays with them, most likely Reed. So there's a lot of things that need to be figured out. I think Golden, they'll try to find a prominent role outside as a big play threat for Jordan Love. But again, Savion Williams is going to be a little bit harder to get going. He reminds me of the Tez Johnson pick that was very late in the draft. You also have Luther Burden earlier. Like, you try to get these guys open and make some plays. And the Packers, again, unfortunately, not a good landing spot for him when Golden is already entering a crowd, and now you have Williams too. So I'll agree with you reluctantly. It's Pat Bryant, but I really don't like any of these receivers. I think some of the guys that were taken beyond these guys in the 4th round through 7 were a little bit more exciting to me.
Yeah, honestly, like, you look into the 4th round and Elic Ayomanor goes to the Titans, and I thought he was going to go earlier in the draft, at least be a 3rd round pick, but he falls to the 4th. I think he can be fantastic. I mean, he was stuck in a bad Stanford offense 100%, but he did the most he could in that offense, 831 receiving yards in 12 games when the quarterbacks combined for Stanford, there was 3 different quarterbacks, but they combined for 2,200 passing yards. They combined for 16 passing touchdowns. He had 6 receiving touchdowns. It's like, and then the year prior, he caught 6 of the 11 passing touchdowns Stanford had. He's been in a brutal system, but he has the size of 6'1", 206. He has the speed and athleticism at 4'4", 40 and a 38-inch vert. And I just think he has the skill set to be really great in the NFL as well. So I can see him beating out Van Jefferson as early as next year. Can you not? I mean, I know they added Tyler Lockett, but again, not like there's just targets to go around here after Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, another team, the Titans, I thought they were going to follow up the Cam Ward pick and look at Higgins or Harris. They're next. They didn't quite go in that direction. Ayomanor is just a big play waiting to happen. We looked at also some of the Canadian Football League boards. It was kind of interesting. He was the one prospect that came up a lot for them on the Tuesday night draft here. So when you look at that, I mean, I say this is a guy that can stretch a field and make those big plays that Calvin Ridley necessarily cannot anymore, or just is not willing to, or can't get separation to do so. So it's always good to bring in a rookie situation, right? So Ayomanor and Ward can get on the same page, starting with next weekend's rookie mini camp, right? That's good. Then you can maybe get a jump on the veterans, what they do with Lockett and Ridley. This is maybe really good for this rookie. So I was looking forward to him going a little bit earlier, but then he ends up in a spot where I thought Harris or Higgins would go. So it actually ended up really well for Ayomanor to go there. And I think he'll have every opportunity to win a prominent role in that team. Now, looking through these other spots here, I mean, it got a little crowded. I mean, the Bucs took the aforementioned Tez Johnson, so they're pretty kind of crowded there. The Titans did take a receiver, Chimere Dike out of Florida earlier, but I still think Ayomanor is the guy to look at. Now, one guy I'm going to throw out, and I'm not trying to be just a straight up Chiefs guy here, but for the second straight show, I'm looking at what the Chiefs did in a late round with an offensive skill position, and it's Jalen Royals. I've liked this landing spot for a long time. I can't believe, I think I mocked this, and I said, maybe they'll go after this receiver. I think it was maybe around earlier, but then I saw Royals and I said, yes, this is a great spot for Royals. And what the Chiefs are doing, if you're paying attention, they are tired of Patrick Mahomes being compressed. They want to let it loose and make these big plays, stretch the field better. That's why they retained Marquise Hollywood-Brown, even though he wasn't healthy. That's why they went out and got the speed of Xavier Worthy last year. And now you have this other dynamic guy that you can put all over the field. So really trying to get those speed, quickness guys for Patrick Mahomes as much as possible in the lineup for Andy Reid. And look, maybe they were just trying to force guys that are not right? Like a Sky Moore, who's a short area guy, but that couldn't do a lot of stuff. Rashee Rice could work out to being big time as their big slot here, and they got an option for that in Juju Smith-Schuster. But they need big playmakers. I'm not saying he's going to step in and dominate right away, but I think they're in the market for maybe going forward. The future of this team could be a lot of 11 personnel if they transition from Travis Kelce using a lot of 3 receiver sets. And if that's the case, you line up Worthy, Rice, and Royals together, this could be a very formidable offense in time. So I'm not saying you're going to go after anything now. It's a bit of a crowd, but this dust could settle a little bit, and he could really settle in as a great target here because, again, I think he fits Andy Reid's offense well, and he fits Mahomes' arms really well as well.
Yeah, and one more guy I want to bring up that was a big I was talking about him as a sleeper in this class that I was excited to see where he went in the later rounds, and it was Torrey Horton, and he ends up in a pretty nice landing spot with the Seahawks in the 5th round. Yes, it's not I'm not going to be drafting him in redraft leagues unless he gets insane hype out of training camp, but he's going to have the opportunity to fight for some snaps with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, or if Cooper Kupp gets injured with his age as well and his injury history. But I mean, Horton would have went much earlier, I believe, if it wasn't for his injury-riddled last season at Colorado State. I mean, the 2 years prior, he was averaging 95 receiving yards per game. It was the 4th most in the FBS during that span, behind only Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Malik Neighbors. And he was everything to that Colorado State's team, making up 38% of the receiving yards over those 2 seasons, the highest rate in the FBS. Maybe teams were scared off of the knee injury late in November, but still ran a 4.41 40 at the combine, still jumped a 38-inch vertical. He seems healthy, seems good to go. I'm excited to see what he could do. A guy I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on as we go through training camp. But that is it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will be back tomorrow talking about the biggest winners, veteran winners after the NFL draft. So don't miss that. We'll talk to you then. Bye, y'all.